So thank you for coming, and we'll start with Jai Radha Madhava. for coming, everybody, and braving the weather. Well, the weather outside. It's been rainy, it's been foggy. Indra. Yeah, and I'd also like to thank Shravan Krishna Prabhu and Vasudhaiva Prabhu for giving me the opportunity to speak about Krishna and speak about Vedic philosophy. So, okay, we'll just chant Ganeshan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Dasaya Krishna Krishna Mami Bhakti Siddhana Bhakti Vishnu Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Dasaya Bhuttareshmati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitnamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Vaishali Shakharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Shadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Gyananmirandasya Jnana Shakaya Chakshurumiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Yeah, so thank you. Unfortunately, I didn't pick up any particular verse, and I thought it would be nice to, obviously there are verses, it's all about the verses, but I thought it would be nice to start regarding, just the topic. And do we have anyone new? Oh, okay, that's nice. Because I was going to say, suppose if I tell you, right, I'm here to convince you about something. So say I'm here to convince you to chant the holy name. What is your first thought about this? Someone just come and say, okay, I'm going to convince you.
Might feel a bit defensive, I guess.
Yeah? So, would you think like, no way, you're not convincing me on nothing, right?
Well, I'm just pretending I'm someone new. I might feel like that because it's you. I wouldn't feel like that.
I'm just saying this because there's no one new actually.
Yeah. It might be a bit. You might get a bit defensive, I guess, if someone was just trying to put something onto you.
Depends on the approach, I suppose, right? But so there's three. If you know someone is trying to, well, I would say not really the word convince, but trying to teach you something or make you aware of something that you're not aware. There's three possibilities, Either you're like, okay, I give it a try, right? Or you can say, okay, I'm already convinced. Or you could also say, no way, you're not convincing me of anything. So this is basically the attitude, But I'm going to come back to that in a bit. But the reason I'm asking this is the ultimate goal of all the scriptures is actually to get us to chant the holy name. So this is what the scriptures are trying to convince us about. Ultimately that's what it culminates to. So all this knowledge, everything we are learning, we are hearing from the Bhagavad Gita, everything we're hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and all these scriptures, the ultimate goal of these scriptures is to engage us in devotional service and is to get us to chant the holy name of the Lord. So I was listening to a lecture the other day, and Srila Prabhupada says there's 18 Puranas, right? And out of these 18 Puranas, 6 of them, they are meant for people in the mood of ignorance. 6 of them are meant, so we have instructions basically for people in the mood of passion, and then 6 of them have their instructions for people in the mood of goodness. So I guess everyone is familiar with these modes of nature. They are also called guna. So it's like guna also means rope. So as a living entity, we are bound by the ropes of nature. That is triguna. So the modes of material nature. So there's tamagun, sattvagun, tamagun, and rajagun. So, okay, no, I'll start in descending order, I think. So we'll start with tamagun. Tamagun means ignorance. This is the mode of ignorance, and these modes are explained in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So ignorance is basically referring to madness, illusion, inertia, and darkness. So that's literally like intoxication, procrastinating things, and we're in a dark zone, right? And then the mode of passion, rajagun, it gives rise to great attachment. So this is being passionate. It gives rise to great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and this gives rise to intense endeavor. So you see people in the mood of passion, they are really having a go at it, really endeavoring. And then we have sattvagun, which is the mode of goodness. So this mode is purer than the others, and the other 2 modes, and it gives rise to knowledge, and one becomes wiser than those in the other modes, and is in happiness. So these modes of nature, they are constantly competing against each other for dominance. So when you like somebody, it's very difficult to be in the mood of goodness just by oneself, because they are like ropes, so they're bindings, right? So sometimes you see people are like riding these waves of the modes of material nature. Sometimes we're at the bottom of the wave, in the mood of ignorance. Sometimes we're in the middle, in the mood of passion, and sometimes we rise to the top, in the mood of goodness, and then we fall back down again. So this is what's happening. So these 18 Puranas, they target different jivas who are in the different modes of nature. And there are many examples. For example, in some of these Puranas, you might give people instructions to sacrifice animals. It might give people various different instructions. But the aim of the literature is to get the living entity to eventually transcend the modes of nature, so he can end up doing devotional service and chant the holy name. So the end, like I said, the conclusion is to convince one to get into devotional service. So now we've got all these Puranas, 18 Puranas, and Jiva Goswami says, like, there are 10 topics which are contained in the scriptures. Would you like to hear about them? Just a quick one, I don't want to get into depth of it, but so there's primary creation, sarga, secondary creation, visarga, sthana, which means maintenance, pushana means mercy, uti means desires, manvantara, the period of man, ishanukata, which is the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees, there's nirodha, so information about annihilation, there's mukti, information about liberation, and then the 10th topic is called ashraya. And ashraya means shelter, in a way. So it means substratum or shelter. And this topic, ashraya, it's the 10th topic, but at the same time, it is the main topic. So all the other 9 topics are culminating to the 10th topic, which is ashraya. Right? And now this gets interesting because it is said that a Mahapurana, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, of all the Puranas we have, Like the Srimad Bhagavatam is called a Mahapurana because it contains all these 10 topics. So in there it's called Tattva Sandarbha, this book by Jiva Goswami says, he gives the example of Matsya Purana and he says it contains only 6 topics. It doesn't contain all of them. But the Srimad Bhagavatam contains all these 10 topics. That's why it's called Mahapurana. And this is why you will see lots of emphasis is laid upon reading the Srimad Bhagavatam in Gaudiya Math, in this movement, in Srila Prabhupada's movement. Because do we have a copy of Vishnu Purana here? Do we have a copy of Garuda Purana? Do we have a copy? No, the emphasis is on Srimad Bhagavatam because this is the reason. Because it's got all the 10 topics and the main topic is Ashraya. So Ashraya means to take shelter. So now there's 3 questions. So who do we take shelter of? This is an easy one, right? Who do we take shelter of? Deities? Krishna, right? So we take shelter of Krishna. And then the second question is, why do we have to take shelter? Do we not have a house? So why is it that we need to take shelter? Has anyone had a thought about it? Why would somebody want to take shelter of the Lord? Okay, we'll get back to that. And then the third question is, how do we take shelter? Right? So now we'll move on to why do we need to take shelter of Krishna? Right? So we are in this samsara. There's a cycle of repeated birth and death. Birth, death, old age, disease. And we're going through this cycle over and over again. You know, we're entangled in this material conditioning, basically. Right? And then in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3.5.38, we see that the demigods are praying. And the demigods, they say, "Oh Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your feet." It's a really nice verse. And here we can see the demigods, they pray, and they are basically taking shelter of the Lord, and they're praising the Lord. They say, one who takes shelter of the Lord is free from material suffering. So there we have one reason. We can take shelter of the Lord to become free from material suffering. But would everyone take shelter of Krishna for the same reason? So that's one reason, to get rid of material suffering. But does everyone want to get rid of material suffering?
There's one shloka about this picture. I forgot which one. He mentions 4 kinds of people who take shelter.
Oh, yeah, you're going ahead, because that's what I'm about to speak then. You know? So thank you, Nikunj. But some people might not be suffering at all because they have a good karma. Life is a bit like milk and honey for them. They've got everything, they're cozy, there's absolutely no suffering. Do you know, they've got nice house, they can travel in a private jet. They've got like a little, money tree in the backyard or something. So why would they want to take shelter to get rid of miseries? They can say, oh, I don't have any miseries. Do you know, so that is not the only reason. And now we're coming to what you said. So in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 7, so I'll start with that. It says in 7.15, it describes 4 types of people who don't want to know God, so they don't come to God. So it says, those miscreants who are grossly foolish, so that's Muda, who are lowest among mankind, Naradama, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. I forgot the Sanskrit for this one. Yeah. yes, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, this is Asura it's called, do not surrender unto me. So here it speaks about 4 kinds of people who they don't surrender unto God. Right? So I'm not really going to go into the depth of it, but the next verse, which is 7:16, so this describes the 4 kinds of pious men who actually begin to render service.
I think it's the people who are in need for money, the people who are looking for the absolute truth, the people who want material things, and then non-loving.
Inquisitive.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right, that's right. So this verse, Bhagavad Gita 7:16, it says, O best among the Bhagavatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me. The distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for absolute knowledge of the truth. So, yeah. So here we can see there's 4 kinds of people who approach Krishna. So first we have the distressed. So this is like to get free from material miseries. So sometimes people, they become distressed. They find themselves in a particular situation in their life, and they are suffering so much that they eventually turn to God out of suffering. So the example is given in the Shastra. This is the example of Gajendra. So you all know the story of Gajendra. Gajendra was a king of elephants, and that's in the spiritual world. So the elephants in the spiritual world, they are, kind of way bigger than the elephants that we got here. So he was massive. He was like a massive elephant, and he thought he wasn't scared of anything really. But once he found himself in a lake, he was sporting with all his companions and his family and everything. And then this crocodile got hold of his leg, and then there was a big fight going on. Did it last for 1,000 years? Or? Yeah. It lasted for a long time. But Gajendra, eventually he gave up because he wasn't in his element. So elephant is a land animal, so it's more powerful on land, but the crocodile is more powerful in water. So eventually he surrendered unto Krishna, and actually he remembered some things from his past life, and he made some prayers, he surrendered, and then Vishnu came, with his Sudarshan chakra, and helped him out like that. He got liberated. So this is one kind of person. And then we've got people who desire wealth. So many people, they pray to God for material things. They pray for money. They come to God. They've got a purpose. Like Prabhupada was saying, they think God is an order supplier. Right? It's like going to the supermarket and saying, hey boy, come here. Here's my list, of my shopping list. So can you go and get those things for me? So that's how where we think God's purpose is. We think God is there to fulfill our wishes. Basically, He works for us. Instead of serving God, we want God to serve us like that. So this is one kind of people. And then we have someone who's inquisitive. So this is somebody who's out of curiosity, someone might just be curious what's going on there. So then they just stumble into a temple and we are like, okay, what's going on? What are you doing, Mataji? Like that. And then the 4th kind of person is one who's searching for the absolute truth. And he said one for the absolute truth is a little bit more elevated than the rest. But these kind of things, they are all kind of people, they're all basically, they are not pure devotees. Because what happens is, if their desires get fulfilled, right, then they are happy with that and believe. Someone who's distressed, he comes and he offers a few prayers. If the Lord takes his distress away from him, then he's happy and he forgets about God. So the same goes for the one who's looking for wealth. You know, if he wins the lottery or he gets a better job, if he finds himself in a better position that he's actually in, then he leaves. He forgets about God. So in a way, unless they purify their motivation, then they are not successful in surrendering to Krishna. So, but that's different for a devotee. A devotee is unmotivated. He just wants to please Krishna. So his pleasure lies in pleasing Krishna. I'm just going to check something. Yeah, so that's the first topic done. So now we have some reasons as to why we can take shelter of Krishna. So now the second question we said is how to take shelter. So now we know, okay, we want to take shelter of the Lord, but how do we take shelter? Trust? Yeah. Trust. And what else?
Approach a spiritual master.
Approach a spiritual master. So basically you go to somebody who can teach you about God, right? And do we have anything else? What do you think over there, guys? Do you have any ideas how we can take shelter of Krishna? Praying?
Follow the scriptures.
Follow the scriptures.
Know more about the person whom you want to surrender.
Yeah, so we know more about the person who we want to surrender. Wow, I got quite a lot. I just made note of two things, you know. But basically, the first one that I made a note of, we have the holy name. The holy name of Krishna. So that's one way we can take shelter of the Lord. Because in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Lila 7:11, it says, the fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Yeah, this is nice. Kali Kalera Dharma, Krishna Nam Sankirtana. It's a really nice verse. Sorry. Yeah, so the fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. So that's the beginning, the first half of the verse. So here it says, in the age of Kali. So we've got 4 ages as well. Can anyone tell me the 4 ages? So Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So these 4 ages are basically, we are more familiar here. We can hear about the Iron Age, or the Copper Age, the Bronze Age, and things like that, the medieval times. So it's different spans of time, right? But even these ones are on a bigger scale, to put it simply. You know, so there's Satya Yuga, so Satya Yuga, everyone was spiritual in Satya Yuga. It's a different age. You know, it wasn't like here. Kali Yuga is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And the recommendation for this age, like it says, the fundamental religious system is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And then the second one, how we can take shelter, is through devotional service. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 11-35, it says, O king, one who accepts this process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead will never blunder on his path in this world. It's nice. Even while running with eyes closed, he will never trip or fall. So this is how powerful devotional service is. So if we accept this process of devotional service, Even while running with eyes closed, we will never trip or fall. So these are two processes where we can take shelter. How we can take shelter? By chanting the holy name and by executing devotional service. And like Prabhu said, devotional service, we also learn how to do that through a spiritual master. Yeah, so I will come to this in a bit. So always a bit open. So now we know the goal of the scriptures, right? So the scriptures are giving us a call, and we spoke about how to proceed towards that call. So the goal is to take shelter of the Lord, and now we spoke about how to proceed to that goal. How do we take shelter? And now the third thing. So there's one thing, and we also spoke about why we need to take shelter, right? But then we have one thing. Now we think, what is holding us back? So we know about all these things, right? We know the goal. We know why we need to achieve that goal. And we know how to do it. But what's holding us back? Why are we not going in 100% head first? Maya. Attachment. And what else?
Sense gratification.
Sense gratification. Uncontrolled false ego, mind, and intelligence. Right. Well, so all this culminates to free will. Because we have our free will, isn't it? And actually, when we think about it, now I'm going to come back to that story about the conviction. Like, if we want to convince somebody, can we really convince somebody? Sometimes we might think, yeah, I'm convincing somebody. But actually, is it not more like we can actually help that somebody to convince himself? So we can provide somebody information, we can help him so he can actually convince himself. Right? And if a person wants to get convinced, so the second thing is attitude. So attitude is very important in spirituality. If we are biased or we have a preconceived opinion, then we're not going to go very far. So if we want to convince somebody, or someone wants to get convinced about something, but he's already got like a biased opinion, he's already thinking, no, I'm not going to get convinced. So then whatever someone tells him, or whatever knowledge he's acquiring, it's just like bouncing on a wall, isn't it? Because he's not taking anything, he's not willing to take anything in. So this is one of the things, we need to have a proper attitude. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 7, this attitude is described like the attitude we need to be able to progress in our spiritual life. Because Arjuna says, now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So in this case, Arjuna, he was having quite a few conflicts going on in his head. Many of you might know the story of Mahabharata. So there was a war going on. Arjuna was in the middle of the battlefield. And the people he was fighting were actually the people who were closest to him. And the people he actually grew up with. You know, so when he looked, he could see his teachers, he could see his family, he could see his friends, you know, all his relatives and so on, and he just dropped his bow and he said, "Oh Krishna, I can't do that, I'm not going to fight." And then he started to try to find all kinds of reasons to justify, you know, like a justification for him not to fight. But then eventually he was like, "Okay, Krishna, I don't know what to do. Please instruct me." So this is the kind of attitude that we need to be able to understand anything philosophical. And then there's one third thing I've noted down. Do you know why we are not going in head first? Because sometimes if you think about it, I don't know how many of you have ever been to a gym before? Gym, yeah. Oh, you're a yoga instructor, right?
I was.
You was a yoga instructor. Sometimes you go to the gym and you might see there are certain types of people who are giving it all, they're all in, you know. They're really pushing like some heavy weights and stuff like that. But then you also see some people who are not doing anything, they're just sitting on the bench and texting on their phone. So they spend 2 hours in the gym, but they're not really doing anything. And then there's a third type of person, he's pushing just the bar. He hasn't got any weight on it, but he's just pushing it, you know. But then after 1 year, you see the guy who's putting all the effort in, who's sweating and pushing big weights. You see he's undergoing like a massive transformation, isn't it? But the guy who's just pushing like an empty bar, he's the same. You know, and the other one is still texting on the bench. So similarly, sometimes we might come to the temple, we might listen to many things, we might hear many things, we might participate in many programs, but we don't actually put anything in practice. You see, and even after 10 years, after 20 years, when you look, you're like, oh, look at this guy. You know, we started together, and look at him, he's like a Hulk. And look at me, I didn't make anything, you know. So this is one of the things we need to keep in mind as well. Even if we have knowledge, even if we are getting good association, we're having a nice time, we're eating prasadam, but we also need to try to put it in practice, right? Because this is very important, you know, because we have time for everything, isn't it? I was speaking to Marx the other day, and we were speaking about these things. We were like, we have time for everything, you know. Everything that's of importance to us, it's not like we have time. We make time for it, right? So, say for example, we make time to sleep. I've got to go to bed, you know. Would you give up like 3-4 hours of sleep? Chamber rounds? No, I prefer to sleep. You know, sometimes Maharaj gives an example. He says, if you're cooking a pizza, do you ever say, I don't have time to put this pizza in the oven, so I'm just going to eat it frozen? Does it happen? No, you find the time to do it, because it needs to be done, else you can't have your pizza. So similarly, if we realize that taking shelter of Krishna is very important, and we need to give it the importance that it has, so we need to make time in our life for Krishna. We're not asking a lot. Krishna is not asking a lot. Okay? You can start by giving 10 minutes. You take one japa, you can buy one in the gift shop. I don't know how many are chanting on japa regularly? Wow, everyone is chanting. Okay, that's amazing. You know, so we can give it time. And so we can give time to our japa, we can give time to a bit of reading, right? We can always scale up the bar, so we always lift the bar, we jump higher. You know, so this is something we can do, right? And one of the reasons I was thinking is also, just 1 second. One of the reasons that holds us back is also a lack of faith. Does anyone have any thoughts about this? Like something that's holding us back in our spiritual life is actually a lack of faith.
So some people could be like, it's impossible, so I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing. Because like you said about trust, right? So faith, like the dictionary definition of faith, it says it's complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So this is the dictionary definition of faith, right? So we've got faith in many things, right? We've got faith in the doctor, for example. When we go to the hospital and the doctor diagnoses us with something and he's giving us some medication, we don't know. if the diagnosis is real, I'm not a doctor myself, you know, the doctor says, okay, you've got a back cough, you've got a lung infection, so you've got to take some antibiotics. Do I really have a lung infection? I don't know. I'm taking your word for it. So this is faith, because you've got faith in that doctor, you take his word for it, you've got faith in the doctor, you take the medicine that he's prescribed to you, and like that. But now, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself, is telling us that this life is temporary. Everyone you meet here, all the experience you have here in this material world, you've already had it before. You took birth millions and billions and trillions of times, right? You've enjoyed yourself, you wanted to be the enjoyer, you've had your own experience. Now it's time, I'm waiting for you, come back. All you need to do is pick up your bead bag and chant the whole name. That's all I'm asking of you. This is your free will. I'm not a dictator, I'm not Hitler. I gave you your free will, but you need to want to come back. I'm waiting for you. This is what Krishna is saying. He's provided all these facilities for us. But what we need to do is to use our free will and give some time. Everything we do, we got 24 hours. It's not a lot. It takes only 2 hours to chant 16 rounds. It only takes, how many minutes does it take to read a chapter from the Bhagavad Gita a day?
Short chapters, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
If you read the
There we go.
If you
Yeah.
read the translation.
So if this is the most important thing, and we have faith in what the scripture is saying, that this is the most important thing, so why can't we dedicate a little bit of time to it? Do you know what's the most important thing nowadays? We can prioritize our job, we can prioritize our, chapati problems, like Indra Prabhu says. We need to, we think these are like the main priorities we have in life. Just earn money to put food on the table and to pay our bills. But is it really the biggest priority? So this is like a bit of a lack of faith, because if we had faith in what the scriptures are saying, then we would put a little bit more focus onto that side of things, isn't it? So that's one thing. And now I've got a few, because this is the initial. So devotional service or bhakti yoga, it's got 9 stages. So it starts with Shraddha. You want to say it? Okay, go ahead.
And then Sadhusanga.
Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha,
And then is it,
Bhajana Kriya,
then it's
Anatta Nivriti,
and then it's Nishta.
Nishtha, yeah.
Then
And then you get Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, and then Prema. Prema is pure love of God. Right? But how we start? It starts on Shraddha. This is the first one. But actually, Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha, they are intermingled. Right? Because, let me just get this here. So it's said, there's 2 types of faith. So this is from Marula Kalamini, from Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So there's Svabhavika, this is like natural faith. So this is like the faith that the gopis, the Brijbasis have for Krishna. Right? This is natural faith. They don't need scriptures to have this faith, they already have it. Right? They don't need to know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's got, universal form and creation and all of that. They don't know all of this. They just have love for Krishna for who he is. This is natural. They would do anything for Krishna. We don't even know that Krishna is God, but we just love Krishna. So this is called Svabhavika. And then there's Balutpadita. So this is faith that occurs by being convinced by the preaching of another. So for us, this is the kind of faith we're cultivating, because we need to be convinced by the preaching of another. So this comes in the form of association of devotees, right? So sometimes we associate with devotees, we get sadhu sangha, and then our faith grows through the process of sadhu sangha. And in general, there's Shraddha, there's sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya, it starts, so bhajana kriya starts in general, not all the time, in general, it starts at the stage of Harinam Diksha. So this is where bhajana kriya starts. So bhajana kriya is devotional service under the instructions of a spiritual master. Because in the Srimad Bhagavatam it also says that it's Krishna and the spiritual master who give the Bhakti Lata beach. So this is the seed of devotional kripa, like of devotional service. So it's at this stage that we start to perform devotional service. But before we get to that stage, we need to work on our faith. And once we get enough faith, then we're ready to take the commitment. So then we're like, okay, yes, we're going to follow the 4 regulating principles, I'm going to chant 16 rounds, and then, we get a spiritual master. So this is very interesting, and this faith develops gradually. In the beginning, it's called Komana Shraddha. Shraddha means faith, and it's called Komana Shraddha. So this is explained in the Madhya Lila. So it says, one whose faith is soft and pliable is called a neophyte. So Komana means soft and pliable. It's called a neophyte. But by gradually following the process, he will rise to the platform of a first-class devotee. So there's 3 types of devotees. There's the Kanishta Adhikar, there's the Madhyama Adhikar, and there's the Uttama Adhikar. Right? So, and the type of faith we have is also different. So the Kanishta Adhikar, he's got faith that is soft and pliable. So you might come to the temple and you might be convinced like a little bit, but then you go away, you get some association, and someone's just going to tell you, hey, what are you doing, man? Hanging around with these guys who wear like a bed sheet and all of that, come here, let's go and have a drink, So because he's got soft faith, then he basically he just goes, So this is like on that level. But as we read more, we cultivate that faith. So then we start to get what is called Drida Shraddha. So here it says, one who is not very expert in argument and logic based on the revealed scriptures, but who has firm faith, is considered a second-class devotee. He also must be considered most fortunate. So again, this is in Madhya Lila 2267. So this is talking about the faith of the Madhyama Adhikar. And then there's the faith of an Uttama Adhikar. So it seems like it's the same faith. We've both got firm faith, which is called Trida Shraddha. But the Uttama Adhikar is one who is expert in logic. So he's got firm faith, but he's also expert in logic and argument. And he's classified as the topmost devotee. He can deliver the whole world. Can one give me an example of an Uttama Adhikar? Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So we need to strengthen our faith. Like I said, if we come to the temple, we listen for 15 to 20 years, but we haven't started to practice devotional service. We haven't started to channel rounds. So then we need to check our faith. Because there's nothing to lose, right? There's nothing, absolutely nothing to lose. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 40, Krishna says, Neha Vikrama Nashusti Pratyavavo Na Vidyate. In this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution. So it's a bit like a bank account.
No, nothing. He also says, Shloka forgot, he says, my devotee never perishes. Let me declare boldly that my devotee never perishes.
Yes, that's a nice one, thank you. Yeah, so like Krishna says, in this endeavor there's no loss or diminution. My devotee never perishes. Right, so what does it mean? In this endeavor there's no loss or diminution. There's no loss and there's no diminution, so it doesn't decrease. So whatever progress that we have made in our spiritual life, we're never losing that. It's a little bit like a bank account, right? So whatever money you're putting in there, that money is staying there. This is a transcendental bank account, right? And we had some very interesting things. If we have some time. Yeah, because Nityananda Prabhu as well, when he's on the marketplace of the holy name, he's selling the holy name. And he's saying, the holy name is free, but there's a price to pay. And what is the price for the holy name? The price is actually faith. You know, all we need is faith in the holy name. So there's nothing to lose in that sense because, so the holy name, it says Krishna Nam Chintamani Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. So the holy name is Chintamani. What does Chintamani mean? Krishna Nam Chintamani. Chintamani, one of the, it means like touchstone, right? And what is a touchstone? It's a precious stone that fulfills all our desires. So the holy name, it can fulfill all our desires. Whatever we want. So there's no loss. Whatever you want bhakti, you want mukti, you want, you know, if you chant the holy name is going to give it to you. Do you know? But at the same time, if we want to serve Krishna, then there's no loss. There's absolutely no loss. Because if we take a look, for whatever reason we want, whatever it is, if we chant the holy name, even if, like we said, these 4 types of people, even if we come, we're chanting the holy name to ask for money. Who chanted the holy name in that way? There was Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj, he started to practice devotional service. What was his goal? He wanted to be like a king. He wanted to become very rich. Isn't it?
There was another way he was told that he wanted to see his dad.
Yeah, he wanted to see his dad, but what did his mom tell him? He was like a little boy, you know, and his father was king. And he went to sit in his dad's lap. And his mom said, because he wasn't like, he had several queens and he was like, you know, the son of a queen that wasn't his favorite, like a little bit lesser in standards. So the queen chastised him and told him, no, you can't be here because you are not like a king and you're not like a higher, something along those lines, you know, you don't have the adhikar to be here. So then he went to ask his mom, how can I get a kingdom? I want to have a better kingdom than my dad, so I can be with my dad. Anyway, so then he got instructed, he just left, he went in the forest and he met Narada Muni, he became his spiritual master actually. But what happened to his desire? His desire got purified. Even though he was approached Krishna, he was performing devotional service for material benefits, in the end it changed him. So in the same way, there's absolutely no loss. And also Krishna, the holy name is Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, so whatever relationship we want with Krishna, this is also in the holy name. Yeah, so I hope this stays with us. You know, every little time we can get, we shouldn't waste our time. We can just chant, we can just scroll through books for scriptures and read a bit. But yeah, I'm going to close here. You know, if there's any questions or any reflections. Yeah? Okay, actually.
You said that to make a progress, if I understood properly, to make a progress you need to start with the faith. What about the people who do not have that faith? People we meet on Harinams, they hear the holy name, they get purified. But what about their progress?
Yeah. So there's something called Shubha Karma. Shubha Karma is good fortune. that comes from material pious activities, right? And then there's also Sukriti, right? Sukriti is pious credits, you see? So in order to be able to start our devotional life, we need to have a certain amount of Sukriti. You know, so like we said yesterday, we were talking, some people are fortunate and some people are misfortunate. So some people are fortunate in the sense they've got enough Sukriti to now know Krishna. So when they're on the street, someone stops them, gives them a book, they are fortunate and they accept their good fortune, so they take that book. You know, so now the time has come for them to be eligible. They've accumulated enough pious credits to be eligible to start their spiritual life. But some people, they might not have enough pious credits, you know, so they need to accumulate more pious credits to be able to get here to that phase. But then one thing that is more important is the devotee, he makes it happen. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he makes it happen. Even though people are not qualified, he's giving it to them. So it's the same, that's why we are a preaching movement. Even though people are not qualified, even though they might need to take, I don't know how many millions and billions of births to do that, but we are facilitating it for them. Srila Prabhupada came and he's facilitating it. So we can all actually do it. You see? Because sometimes even in devotional life there are things like there's Agyata Sukriti, which is unknown devotional service, and there's also Gyata Sukriti, which is knowing. Knowingly we're accumulating pious credits. You know, in the sense that sometimes we might do those little things like in Tulsi Puja, we take a little bit of dust from Tulsi and we put it on our head. This gives us like 100 times benefits on whatever pious activities we're doing. You know, like little things, taking Charanamrita. So this is all called Gyata Sukriti. So we're doing those things voluntarily to accumulate pious credits. So then we got adhikar to go deeper in our spiritual life. Like, I hope this answers your question.
I was thinking about where you were from because your parents are devotees, but I was thinking about my mom, for example.
Right.
So she has no faith in what we do, although she appreciates so many things. And I was wondering how I could facilitate her.
Yeah. Because one thing is, like I said, we can do everything to make it easy for them. So we can provide information, we can bring them, we can give them association, we can give them prasadam, right? We can do everything, but by the end of the day, because everybody's got their own free will, so they will need to convince themselves in regard to that matter. Because even Krishna, if he wanted, with one snap of his fingers, he could turn everybody into devotees. But the thing is, because he gives us our own free will. You see, but one thing is also, it's not a general thing, but from my experience, it's hard to preach to family. So if I go to preach to my cousins, they just go, hey. You know, but if some other devotee goes to preach to them, they might take the other devotee more seriously than me. Because they've seen me, you know, they've got a different image of me. They've known me when I wasn't a devotee. And like, what was the word? Familiarity breeds contempt, right? So it's a little bit difficult. So if you're trying to preach to your mom yourself, it might be a little bit difficult, you know, especially your mom. Might be like, you're just a little baby. Now you're trying to teach me something. Because mothers, they always look like that, you know. So sometimes, yeah. And sometimes it's easier to just do it in disguise, you know. Don't necessarily say, Just say, hey, I got invited to see some friends, do you want to come? There's nice food and this and that. And when we just give them the secret weapon, we just deploy the secret weapon, which is Prashada. Yes.
We used to give my mother prashada regularly, you know, and we knew that she wasn't interested in the practice of Krishna consciousness. But one time when we were staying there, she suddenly started singing the Hare Krishna mantra out loud this on her own. So you never know how it's going to affect people actually. So I mean, when my wife and I were new devotee, I'm still new devotee, but I tried to preach to my brother-in-law, you know, and I really got in a tangle. And he became very upset, and after that I knew that it was the wrong thing to do, to try to convince people verbally when they're not ready for it, you know, or if they have a completely different type of philosophy or a mindset or a worldview or something like that. So like preaching sometimes is an art. Generally prasadam breaks people down like that. My brother-in-law asked me now about the temple and you know, and about devotional music and things like that, so it kind of, you know, it might take some time.
It's all the bookish thing about the Gajendra and crocodile.
Yeah.
What happened? People consume use consciousness. Like Australia, they started throwing the meat to the crocodile to grab up the elephant, which is very expensive to cause it. So that was a purpose. So they started grabbing the animals sometime in the human. So what they did, they put some monkeys.
Monkeys.
Monkey, yeah.
You
know why? Monkey, they were affected the area where this was equated. They left the monkey breathe there, big sticks and was stones, right? And some there on the tree, okay? So as soon as somebody goes there, somebody comes and puts their stick into the crocodile mouth. Somebody puts a stone, okay? The one climbs to start hitting with a stone and with the hammer. Now crocodile is an animal of the water, but he has no sense that the monkey is on the head. Now he can't move that monkey. And he's hitting hard. So they disappear.
The monkeys are intelligent.
Yeah, that's what. It's actually not, I could show you.
Okay, maybe later we can have a chat.
No, because we are in magic, so we know that, so we have to sort the solution. I'm not in there.
Yeah,
So they
thank you.
Thank
Thank you for sharing. But let's see if we have any more questions from anyone else. If not, do we have time for a quick kirtan or?
Yeah. Start going.
Oh, we want to start there. Okay, so yeah, if we.
Oh, I was just excited about it.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a question. You mentioned that verse, Nam Chintana Krishna Chaitanya Sita. Can you expand on this meaning? Rasa Vigraha?
Yeah, Rasa Vigraha, so there's 5 Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, so there's 5 rasas, right? So we have Shantaras, but normally Shantaras is excluded because Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Holy Name. So we have Shantaras, we have Dasyaras, we have Vatsalya Ras, Sakyaras and Madhura Ras. So by chanting the Holy Name imbibes all these rasas. So whatever relationship that we have with Krishna, just by chanting the Holy Name, we can achieve it. Like that. So we don't need anything else. We don't need Siddha, Pranali, or whatsoever. Everything comes from the Holy Name. Yeah. So we don't really need to go to a Radhakund Babaji for him to tell us our spiritual body. Just by chanting the Holy Name, everything will get revealed because everything is contained in the Holy Name. Yeah, I hope this answers your question. Okay, thank you, devotees. So we can move on to the next part of the program. And just a quick one is, does anyone feel inspired to actually put this in practice?
Yeah, I guess to have more
Yeah, but it's just about association, because this thing, it doesn't happen in one day, it doesn't happen in 2 days, it takes time, but the good thing is, by getting association of devotees, our faith keeps increasing, you know. So this is very nice. Sadhu Sangha. Okay, Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki.